Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my fourth video on chess openings. Today's chess opening begins with the King's Gambit. The King's Gambit is an opening in chess in which white gives up the f4 pawn in order to usually attack black's f7 pawn, which is only guarded by the king. So we have e4, e5, f4. Now white is not in particular control of how these lines go, so it's more worth mentioning how black can respond, which is most commonly and preferred for me and for the engine is to accept the pawn. And those are the lines we're going to be taking a look at today. So after e takes f4, knight to f3 prevents the queen from checking on h4. So the queen checks the king, and the knight guards against that. So after knight to f4, or knight to f3, we have g4, and this is black protecting their extra pawn that they've just gained in the opening. And usually this is the way to refute gambits. And to refute an opening, it means to take the opponent's idea of, which is usually an aggressive idea, and either gain an equal position as the opponent or gain an advantage. So it's the most fighting strategy, essentially. Usually for any sort of gambit is to accept the gambit and ask white, well, what are you going to do now? So what white does here is play h4, going down the Kieseritzky. And the Kieseritzky is simply a variation of the King's Gambit accepted, or specifically the King's Gambit accepted after these sort of moves occur, where black protects a pawn, and in this particular case, well, white wants to question black's pawn chain immediately. This pawn chain, of course, meaning this sort of avalanche that black starts to form, which continues to roll down the board with g4 attacking white's knight on f3. Well, because after h4 you don't want to take, it's better to be aggressive here. So after knight to e5, the knight goes to the only square that is forward, or aggressive in that sense, and also isn't in danger of being taken, like knight to g4, g5, which is the Algier's Gambit, in which in this square, if the knight is attacked, it can't go anywhere. It can't be saved. So that's why it's the Algier's Gambit. So you could see where all those squares the knight can move to, if you don't believe me. So after knight to e5, we have knight to f6 developing, and also adding a protector of the pawn on g4. And here, instead of d4, which would continue down the main line of the Kieseritzky, which again is just a variation of the King's Gambit. So instead of going down the main line of that variation, we have bishop to c4. Now bishop to c4, besides just attacking the f7 pawn and developing, it also illustrates a common motif for multiple openings, in which black takes their knight and their bishop and attacks black's f7 pawn. Now, of course, black has resources to fight against this, usually it's playing knight to h6 if that move is available, protecting the f pawn. But in cases in which that is not a possibility, for example, in this position, you can't play knight to e7. It simply won't help you because you can still take the f7 pawn. So the only means of protecting the f pawn, besides just giving it up and moving the queen and letting white take the rook, such as something like this. Oh, well, I guess it would take, or white would take like this and then take the rook, which also is something that is plausible. Like black could allow something like that maybe in some other games and still come out in a fine position, but in this position in particular, I believe that would lead to a disadvantage, which is why we have d5, which is again the motif I was alluding to for black having a resource to protect against the battery on the f pawn. So we have knight, pawn takes pawn. It's a free pawn. So white takes, and then black takes the opportunity to scare off these pieces that are very much in their territory. And so far, all the moves we've looked at correspond to a game played between two grandmasters, or maybe one of them is an international master. I don't know. Their background or names aren't that relevant, although I'm sure it's interesting. They're called Brenninkmejer with the white pieces. Both are Dutch players, I believe. Played in the Netherlands, so that's fitting. And with the black pieces, we have Hoeksema. And it was a game played again in the Netherlands, in Grenninkmejer, in Groningen, as mentioned in the previous video. So that game continued with d4 because black just attacked the knight and we need to protect the knight. And here is the main focus of this video, where black could go knight to h6, such as Hoeksema did, or such as, in that game, right? So knight to h5 protects the f pawn against the bishop, right? The bishop on c1. So it's a good move. But an alternative and also excellent move is castles immediately, giving or disregarding material for king safety or immediate king safety. And then white seizes the opportunity to capture the pawn. And then we have knight to h5, because there's really not much else to do in this position as black. You could play something like bishop here, developing a bishop, or try to do something over here with the knight, but you don't have space. You don't have space on the queen side, or so maybe perhaps a pawn break. But the more aggressive option, and also the option that clears up lines on the king side, is knight to h5. So usually we say knight on the brim is grim, but this is one of the exceptions, because of course usually you don't want to put your knight on the edge of the board where it doesn't have much scope. And finally, after knight to h5, white simply protects the bishop with g3. That is the 10th and final move of this line, which is a variation of the game I mentioned. And we're going to be taking a look at multiple variations of Brenninkmejer Hoeksema in 2002. It was a game played in 2002. So it's a more recent game compared to the other game we've taken a look at thus far, Monin Korolev, which was played in the 1980s. That sums it up. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next chess openings video.